wished I had told you was the only one.
Uh-oh.
But it's too late. It's too late. She's gone.
You sweater, and I ain't talking about a Cool J. You a big L, and I ain't talking about Cool J. See me at the airport.
Verbally Effective, episode 34. Your double E, let's go. And today is the day we have Miss Tonya Dyson with me in the studio. Hey, Tonya.
Hey.
How you doing, lady?
I am doing wonderful.
Now, Tonya and I know each other from way back in the day, almost 20 years ago. At
Yeah, it was. That's crazy.
Back at Lemoyne on college. I remember you were in the choir.
Yeah.
And you were singing your butt out. We would go to chapel.
Yes.
Yes. Do you miss those days?
I actually do. I do. It was an odd thing. Lemoyne was a little bit different for me. Because I started at U of M, but I transferred to Lemoyne to sing at the choir. To sing in the choir. So, like, going from U of M to, like, coming to, like, this close-knit family, like, where you almost felt like you were going to school with, like, a whole bunch of cousins and different things. Because it was big, but it was just that small, you know. So, I actually miss it. It was pretty fun. I mean, I'm still cool with a lot of the people, even a lot of the folks that don't even stay in Memphis anymore. You know,
really?
Still keep in touch with them.
Mm-hmm. Y'all were really close.
Yeah.
We're really close. I miss my friend Joe. Yes, I miss my friend. I miss him so much. But do you think that going to Lemoyne on that it prepared you for your music journey that you have been going through now?
Yes, it actually did, and that was the reason why I wanted to come to Lemoyne, because I was very familiar again with the Soulsville history. Being from Covington, you know, I followed and paid attention to just the whole soul movement and looking at how Isaac Hayes moved from Covington and kind of went to Manassas and then kind of gravitated over to the Soulsville area. So I kind of followed that. I've always loved the connection that neighborhood, you know, had with just not just Memphis music, but just music overall. You know, it's like with Stax Museum there, and then the origins of High Records and Royal Studios right around the corner, and you know, with the Ferdine and Marius White, you know, being in Lemoyne Gardens, growing up there, and starting Earth, Wind, and Fire. And then, of course, you know, as we know, with Aretha just passing away, you know, Aretha grew up down the street on Lucy Avenue. Then you had Lucy Campbell, one of the first to chart gospel music, and Johnny Ace, at the place where I work at now, Memphis Slim Collaboratory, named after Memphis Slim, great blues musician. And, I mean, just so much musical history. And that's just a little bit. It's like so much happened over there. And so I was interested in exploring that and seeing, and this was, of course, you know, late 90s, early 2000s, and it's like a lot, this was before a lot of development was actually directed there. Stax Museum was pretty much new during that time, and so there wasn't a lot of development. So it was like I was really interested in trying to figure out a way to like help boost that area and help increase like the music awareness as far as the history of that neighborhood, and how it was not just the neighborhood's history, but it was more like Memphis history and just the world history when you think about it.
Yeah, because when we were there, it was none of that.
None of it
going
at all.
on there.
We had Lemoyne Gardens.
We had LMG, baby. It was LMG. And we had to, like, you know, fend from the crackheads, you know, but they were our friends too. You know, they were around the neighborhood. But they didn't bother us.
They didn't bother. They yell out stuff. I remember, parking. What was that? Walker Avenue parking. And getting out of the car, and they'd be like, "Hey, smarty yard." Bookworm, you ain't gonna say that. Bookworm.
That was my friend. Crackhead Chris was my friend. Yes. But okay, fast forward to today.
Right.
So much development.
So much.
Have you been a part of that development?
Yes, I have. I'm in the neighborhood, of course, working as marketing and program manager at Memphis Slim Collaboratory, I mentioned before, and also with the director of the Soulsville USA Festival as well. So yes.
And you have your own company, NeoSoulville. Tell us about that project.
So again, I started NeoSoulville. It actually began back in 2004. Believe it or not, it was my capstone project, and I had an entrepreneurship class where I had to present a business plan, and I presented my business plan on NeoSoulville. And it was funny because my teacher gave me a C and said it wouldn't work in Memphis, and I had to argue it. I literally had to go and file an appeal about that grade because I was like, he's going off of if he think it'll work, not how good this business plan is. So I had to fight for that.
Did you get the appeal?
I did. I'm trying to remember. Did I? Or did I quit caring? I can't remember. But either way, like years later, I saw him. And he was like, "I have to admit I was wrong." And I was like, "Thank you," because because you wouldn't have accepted me telling you were wrong years later. But it started simply as that, just a plan, a college student. I saw a lack of overall support and push for soul music here in Memphis. You get the legacy part of it, but it's like a lot of times it just kind of stopped at, we have Stax Museum, and that's where it stopped. And so it stopped at the Stax musicians, and that was pretty much it. And so it didn't really encompass all of the musicians that weren't maybe not on the label. And then also the thing that Memphis was leaving out is like, we support a lot of legacy as far as what used to be, but there are several musicians and tons of amazing artists that exist here now that kind of get outshined by the legacy artists. And I would tell people all the time that this is, when I first started, Isaac Hayes was still alive. Al Green was, a little bit more present and, doing more stuff. So, and, Barkay is going and, and that's the thing. It's like, as a new soul artist, it's hard to do stuff when they still have the option of calling Al Green before they call you. It's like, it's like we still have the legacy that was here. And so I wanted to create some type of platform where, again, I guess the soul children, the kids of the soul movement that was here, that kind of built on that, got equal opportunity to shine, because we were really lacking in those opportunities where we just got bypassed.
And you know what, when I think of Memphis Slim House, like I've been there several times to listen to some recordings for some rehearsals, do you see a lot of artists doing original music? Because I know when you mentioned the Soulsville USA Festival coming up, artists will be performing original music. Do you see a lot of from the writing to the production, is it a lot of that going on, or is it a lot of sampling?
It actually is. What we're experiencing now is just a lack of spaces to do that original music. A lot of venues, it's an odd thing. You have this huge odd separation of music. So I guess, allowed to speak in terms of black and white, you see a lot of different white bands, rock bands, and different things like that. Like, they have the venues to do, to go in, do their original music, sell their albums and stuff. Black clubs are kind of set up differently. We have nightclubs that just happen to have a stage or happen to have an area for entertainment, but it's nothing specifically built around entertainment. It's a nightclub or it's a event space that happens to do music, right? And so a lot of times, a lot of black artists, especially, they get locked into doing covers and doing things that appease the audience. So it's like, a lot of times, and it is an odd thing, especially it's a real conundrum being in Memphis, because this is the city of, soul music. But we have to get to the point where we accept originality. We have to get to the point where we might not know the words to that song, right off the bat. But, take a listen. Yeah, take a listen to it, because it's a really good song. Buy the song, go learn the words, and then come back, and that way you can feel familiar and be hip, because you don't know the person singing them outside of the artist, and do it. So I think we need to kind of cultivate our acceptance of original music, and look at that.
I know that you have been a curator at large for a lot of high profile artists. Tell us some of the artists that you've worked with.
So recently, let me see, just did the Lettucey show. It was Lettucey, Tweet, and Melanie Fiona. For that, did the Floetry reunion show. I've worked with Bilal with Kindred Family Soul. Tons of artists. And as a singer, it's odd. As a singer, I've written for a couple of artists and done ghost vocals and stuff on the Dog Pounds albums. I always shock people when I say that. Yes, the last 2 Dog Pound albums with Daz and Corrupt, like as the Dog Pound, I sang on those.
Give me a little bit. What you say?
That was that. Do you remember Manefer? Like when the group Manefer? So it was me and Tamara singing on. We did 2 songs on one album, and then as a solo artist, I did another song with them. So yeah.
But what do you think about the current state of hip hop? Honestly, truly.
You know what? I go back and forth on this because I want to be a hip hop purist. That's the funny thing. It's like I want to be like, that's not hip hop, but then at the same time, I don't want to be that person that's trying to tell somebody what their art is and what their art isn't. I just know now, just as an older adult, that now I kind of understand, like, our parents who's like, I don't know about all of that, and all that type of stuff. And it's like, I don't criticize a lot. It's like, if I don't like it, I just don't listen to it. I make it a point to try to listen to the stuff that I like. Now I will tell you, I listened to Bone Thugs and Harmony yesterday and had this revelation, and I was like, okay, they are the case that provided for the necessity of auto-tune. Because who was it, Busy Bone, that had the high-pitched voice that sang? Was it Busy Bone or Crazy Bone? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, listening to him now as an adult, and especially being like this big music enthusiast and educator and everything, he was not hitting those notes. And it was like he was balancing. We loved it. But it's like, now it drives me crazy because I'm like, he's just a half step on that nose. Like, if I could just take his note and nudge it up some, like on the thing, and get up. So I was like, oh, people listen to that and it's like, okay, I need these artists to at least hit these notes, like if they're going to sing. So that's where auto-tune, came from. And it's like, I actually love the beginning of it. Like, I feel like it got overused for a hot second because it kind of disguised the fact that a lot of people didn't really have talent, but like the innovators in it. Like, I had a chance to listen to T-Pain's. I love T-Pain too. I listened to his NPR Tiny Desk. Have you heard?
I saw that too.
And he did, of course, he did it auto-tune free. And he could hold his own. Like, it made you wonder. It's like, I don't necessarily need him to sing.
Don't really need the auto-tune, or does he?
Yeah, he kind of reminded me of like a thuggish Al Green.
He got it going. He's very
slightly more thuggish Al Green.
He got it going on.
Yeah.
This discussion is making me think about Bobby Brown. Did you see?
I didn't get a chance, but I read the book when it came out.
Well, it's nothing but a visual for the book from what I hear. Oh my, he has been through so much.
He's been through a lot. And that's the thing. Like, people look like, even looking at the New Edition story, like they were poor kids that were taken, and it's essentially the same story. If you look at the story of New Edition, if you look at the story of DeBarge, the family, their family. If you look at the Jacksons, if you look at the Silvers, like all of them were poor families with extremely talented kids. And even if you look at, like, juxtaposed to what I was just talking about with booze and people being, it's like instead of putting their kids in the field, they put their kids on the stage, because that was the way that it was possible for the entire family to make money to get out of poverty and get out of that. But you saw like how people were getting greedy and everybody was picking at them and everything. And mind you, all of these, they're kids. And they're going through this, and then they're forced to live these adult lives and be exposed to so much.
And taking care of everyone.
Yep. And that's a lot of pressure. And as I said, people fold. And add that if you already got issues, if you already have some type of mental issues going on, it just kind of compounds things. And it's to the point where it's hard to handle. I've been seeing all the social media posts talking about it. I want to actually watch it.
He was pounded. It was a lot of sex. It was a lot of drugs. It was a lot of death.
Now, mind you, I grew up with it. So I grew up, with Bobby Brown and that whole generation. So I watched. So when people were shocked about him and Janet, I was like, they were on so many. They were on Fresh. Do you remember Fresh magazine?
Yeah.
And, like, remember all? I hate that all those magazines are gone.
But I still, in my mind, I wasn't putting them two like that.
Right.
Cause he was hitting that and she was like, my mom and daddy,
right, are not gonna, won't do this and all that. So I saw people's response to it, and some people were mad. They was like, they felt like he sullied Whitney Houston's name, and people were like, she's dead and she can't tell her story. And my thing is, I don't know what
story, though.
I was like, this is his story. It's his story, and she, of course, was such a big part of his life. She was in it, and he was telling things from his perspective.
You are such knowledge of music. I'm loving this. Now, what I do want to talk about, though,
okay,
before we wrap things up. Now, I remember I was on Facebook, girl. I was going down the time, and I see that you had went to Cuba.
Yes.
And so you were, posting about your great trip to Cuba. How was Cuba? First of all,
I love Cuba to the point where I'm planning multiple. I want to go back a couple of times through the year. I found someone actually that works at the Black Arts Alliance right around the corner from me in Soulsville that is Cuban descent.
A real deal.
And still owns a house in Cuba and does tours there.
That's the right one.
Exactly. And so I wanted to go on that trip because I've always loved Cuban music. I've always been curious about Cuban music.
Was it more about music, and you were attracted to the music side, or you just wanted to go there because the laws had kind of lifted up to
Right.
travel to Cuba?
I think the music is what drew me to it, and through following the music, I kind of got deeper insight with the people, and just how salsa music is kind of built into the culture. So it's like the fact that everyone did the salsa dance, and it's like, and their connection with music and it being connected to their spirituality, like just that their inner self. It's like it was that embedded into the culture, and I thought that was interesting. And I also love the way that Cuba never hid its African roots. Like that was never a thing that it did. And I remember watching Sesame Street as a kid, and Sesame Street exposed us to a whole lot of stuff that we wouldn't have been privy to. And they were kind of, a leader in that aspect as far as cultural inclusivity and just making sure that kids saw themselves, or they saw other people, and they got to see the world just by sitting in that screen. Even if they never left the neighborhood, you kind of saw the world, through Sesame Street. And so they brought Celia Cruz on Sesame Street when I was a kid. I was probably like 5. And she was speaking Spanish, and it blew my mind because of course, growing up in the South here in America, I only thought that black people existed as one thing. And of course I read the books. Unfortunately, I grew up in a household that was very culturally rooted, and so I had books, I had access to knowledge, so I knew about our connection with Africa and different things like that. But I don't think at that early age I really grasped the diaspora, like how big it was, and how many people got pulled from Africa, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, and how that African culture went on to these other places to create like all this whole new culture where and so it's like watching Celia Cruz, and then it's like her speaking and talking in Spanish. My mind was blown, because at that point I just thought like Mexican people and like people that weren't black, that was their culture. So I never saw blackness into that, and then it opened my eyes, and I was like, okay, like Cuba's dope. So I always like listen to like a lot of the Cuban music, and then listening to like the music that came from Cuba, and then like Puerto Rico, where you had the Fania All Stars and all of them traveling and doing like this super like soulful salsa music. So one of the things I really wanted to go there, I've been kind of exploring the similarities between soul and salsa, because it's all very African rooted. It's about keeping that beat and the drum and the syncopation and like that beat, kind of like the heartbeat, and it's keeping that in there. And so it's a whole lot more similarities than differences.
I mean, I started that question off with Cuba. We got into Helsinki and everywhere else.
Right.
But we're going to bring it back to
Cuba.
So when you got home from Cuba, what happened when you got home from Cuba?
I got robbed, man. I got robbed. That's the thing about traveling. You have to be careful about who watches you. And I don't really want to say that that's like a Memphis thing. I think that's just anywhere. It's like not paying attention. The basic stuff, not loading your car up where, with tons of suitcases where people can see you and just guess like, oh, she's about to be gone for a minute. Right. And that type of thing. So, but yeah, yeah, came home, my apartment was broken into, all my stuff was taken, so I kind of had to start all over again, which was, the thing about it, I was sad about it. When I tell you, I was like, I cried.
I could tell from your post on Facebook, it was just like, oh my God, like to go on just a wonderful trip like that and come home and you have been victimized like that.
And it was just a violation. Like I got over. Fortunately, I had insurance, so I didn't have to worry about the stuff. But it was just the fact of feeling violated and having someone in your space uninvited. And you don't know what they've touched or what they've done to everything. So whatever they did leave, it cast a weird shadow on what was left because of the fact that you don't know what happened to it. So it didn't feel yours anymore. You didn't have that personal attachment to it. So I ended up kind of just starting all over from scratch.
And you got Soulsville coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
October 20th.
Yes.
So how can everybody get in touch with you?
A couple of different ways. Couple of websites that you can follow. Of course, you can follow NeoSoulville.com for all my stuff business-wise. You can go to TonyaDysonMusic.com for me musically, or follow me on social media. For the festival, you can go to SoulsvilleUSAFestival.com. And for my other ventures, like Memphis Slim House. You can go to memphisslimhouse.com to find out, you know, what we're doing with artists there, because we're doing some amazing work with artists there. Again, lending to that, building a platform for new artists and providing a space, a safe space for them to create and collaborate with each other to kind of build these relationships that are needed to kind of take their career to the next level. So, as I said, if I'm not singing music, I live music pretty much. So it's like I'm always doing something.
And I'm thinking, like, as we've been talking, like, when am I going to name this episode? It's definitely going to have something to do with music or creative, or it's always one word, but it's going to be something like that. I already know because of our conversation that we've been having.
Okay, great.
So I'm excited. So thank you so much for visiting Verbally Effective Podcast, Tonya Dyson.
Thank you.
You were an awesome guest for episode 34.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please hang up and try again.